Hello, and welcome to the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday podcast. We are behind the scenes at the Daily Desk. We started out this week at the beach, the Sonoma Coast. We were at Dillon Beach, and our last activity and introduction into National Summer Learning Week is our day collage. So the objective was to take some words that we connected with and incorporate them into the painting activity we did using the Tempera powder paint. And this is something that I came up with. I used She Sells Seashells by the Seashore as my words that I connected to because we've been shelling at the beaches and getting ready for our next project in the fall. So my piece has a little bit of sgraffito, a little bit of texture tools, and the swirl brush. And this is definitely complementary to the Tempera powder paint, which gives it a kind of watercolor look. And what I'm going to do is pass the camera around to each artist facilitator, and they're going to explain a little bit about what they liked about their piece, what texture tools they used, what inspirations they drew from, and give any little insight they thought about the project and how they came about their inspiration.
So I started with my piece of paper with words on it, and I kind of just made my waves in the shape of that using the Tempera paint and glue and distress oxide. And then I made this sun in the corner, and I just decided to go out with that to fill the entire black area on the paper. And then just at the end I decided to use a sponge and water mixed with white Tempera powder to create like a seafoam effect on the top of the waves.
And here is my piece, inspired by yesterday's trip to the Sonoma Coast, using Tempera powder and distress oxide and a little bit of water to make the paste when necessary. My favorite part of this piece, I would say, is how the seafoam turned out and the sand. Yesterday I had started painting the sand, and the color ended up being a very muddy brown. So today, after it dried, I added the Tempera powder, which was kind of a rusty brownish color, with yellow distress oxide and a little bit of water, and I just layered it on, dabbing with the brush, and it created a better texture for the sand. There is a little bit more I would like to work on here. I would like to add a little bit more to the waves. I would like to add a little bit more color and dimension to the grasses. And to create the clouds, I used seafoam and dabbed the white paint to create the clouds. And a little bit more to go, but you get the idea.
Hello, everyone. We're opening our podcast at Shell Beach on the Sonoma Coast. And we were here a couple weeks ago tide pooling. The tide is high right now, so the area where the tide pools are kind of covered in water right now as the tide rises. But we're going to talk a little bit about the activity and how we created some of the activities using sand and seashells, and why we selected to use the Tempera powder paint to kind of simulate what it would look like if we were using watercolors. So as you can tell, in the ocean, you see a lot of blues and greens. And today what I found out is that using powder paint along with the glue that we used as a binder to do the decollage activity, that we were able to get some of these colors perfectly in our artwork. So Mary and Lori, in observing these waves coming in now, don't you think that we got some really clear colorways that reflect what we're looking at?
Definitely. Using the brown tempera paint and the yellow distress oxide, I was able to create the pigment of the sand. And you got the water, Mary.
Yeah, the blue tempera paint and the yellow distress oxide also made green. That is kind of reminding me of what the water looks like right now.
So that's beautiful. And our next activity is going to be to incorporate the black sand and the rocks and the shells into a mosaic. So this is why we're out at the beach today, just to kind of give you a clear perspective of what our inspiration is and where our materials are coming from. As you can tell, this section of the beach has more pebbles in the sand because we're closer to the rocks. And it seems like as the tide crashes over the rocks and right before you get to the rock, that the sand closest to the water where the waves are coming up is more fine.